Hello everyone and welcome to TCBU Magazine webinar on hot opportunities in cold chain. Whether it's storage and transportation of fruits and vegetables, processed foods, dairy and ice cream, pharma and healthcare, or hospitality, cold chain remains an integral part of any industry. Also, as COVID-19 vaccine is yet to be launched and distributed, there will be spurt in demand for cold chain logistics. However, according to the recently published India Cooling Action Plan, while India has a large inventory of cold storages or refrigerated warehouses, the remaining elements of cold chain infrastructure like pack houses for reefer transport and ripening chambers are largely missing. Thus, there's a huge business potential in this industry. Today, on this note, you are going to witness an engaging interactive session on hot opportunities in cold chain. Today's panel of leading industry experts will talk about the untapped opportunities in the culture industry. We are sure it's going to be very informative and useful for all our attendees. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege for me to introduce you to today's distinguished speakers. Mr. Gopal Ahuja, Chairman of Komal Exotic Spices Private Limited and Chairman of Food Processing Committee of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Then Mr. Srinivas Reddy, Senior General Manager, Commercial Refrigeration at Bluestar, and Mr. S. Hari Nagendra Prasad, Senior Manager, Product Management at Tecumseh Products Company. So delegates, get ready to witness an engaging session on hot opportunities in cold chain. To take the session forward, I would like to invite Mr. Srinivas Reddy. Mr. Reddy is the Senior General Manager, Commercial Refrigeration at Bluestar. He joined Bluestar Limited in 1996 and currently heads Commercial Refrigeration Business Division in the company and is responsible for its strategy, business growth, customer satisfaction, and overall profitability. He is a member in CII Western Region Subcommittee on Rural Urban Connect and a member of the CII National Task Force on Cold Chain Development. Today, he is going to discuss about the key driving factors and challenges in the Indian cold chain industry. So let's welcome Mr. Srinivas Reddy.
This subject is very close to my heart, so I don't miss out any opportunity to speak about cold chain whenever I get an invitation from anybody. Firstly, I thank Mr. Roy for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts and perspective. Thank you, Mr. Roy. Cold chain subject, as we know, is widely debated now more than before, primarily due to its relevance and importance in the context of India as well as a global context. There are a lot of concerns expressed around food security for the world. Most of the developed countries also expressing a serious concern on whether they would be able to feed their population in the few decades to come in. Whether we will have enough food to feed the world, because natural resources are slowly dwindling. There are issues connected with the sustainability. There are issues connected with the water scarcity and many other related issues connected with the ecological balance. Right, so India is no exception for this problem. In fact, even the developed countries are facing this challenge, largely because of the imbalance between the production, distribution, and consumption. So in that context, there is often this question which is asked or faced by government, industry, and many of the stakeholders like us, that whether India can become a food factory for the world, because India has sustainably built scale in production over the years. India is either number one or number two in many of the categories related to horticulture, milk, marine. And of course, India is also a strong market for consumption. It is not that we produce and there is a huge surplus, but there is also a consumption that happens in India. While the country does not have any challenge in terms of a productivity, thanks to green and white revolution that were kickstarted about a couple of decades ago, which are giving us the benefits right now. But the problem lies, a serious problem lies in terms of the wastage. It is often said by economists that there is a 30% wastage, 40% wastage, and certain analysts peg the wastages around close to 40,000 to 50,000 crores. Whether the numbers are right or wrong, but it is massive wastage. If indeed there is another school of thought that if the waste is so much, do we notice any dump yards across the country? We don't notice any dump yards. Quite frankly, you and me, we won't see such a kind of a dump yards around the country. So what is happening here? The critical thing that everyone misses out is these losses are pegged in terms of the value loss to a commodity, strictly speaking. Fortunately, there is a market for every grade in the country. So therefore, we don't seem to be worrying about the problem in general because everything what gets made available gets consumed in the country without much botheration for the value loss. So this is a serious concern. You would have noticed that if some of you have visited farms or farm gates, it is very paradoxical that at a farm gate, you pay less price for an excellent quality, while in the market, you pay higher price, maybe a 5 times higher price for a quality which is poorer by 5 times. So the wastage happens across the value chain. Many of us know that the wastage happens around close to 40 to 50% at the harvesting and post-harvesting stage, around close to 15 to 20% during transport. And also there is substantial wastage happens in the last mile. We can go on talking about it. In fact, there are more questions than answers at the moment. Back to the subject of cold chain, there are many perspectives around cold chain. Somebody will say, what is cold chain? What is cold storage and all that? For the benefit of our people on the call, I want to clarify that there is nothing called cold storage. It is only has to be spoken in terms of the cold chain. The simple reason that any commodity value chain, which is maintained with desired temperatures, right from a harvesting or production stage till to the consumption, is called cold chain. Anything which is missing in the link along the value chain is not a cold chain at all. And people mistakenly use cold storage at certain point in value chain as a cold chain, which is not rightly. So I request everyone to take a note of that. Second myth around cold chain is people always relate cold chain as a cold storage set up in some areas. It is not that. Cold chain also includes some refrigeration elements like a deep freezer, visi-cooler, a lot of other merchandising items which are placed in the last mile as well. For example, your domestic refrigerator is also as part of a cold chain link, if you have to strictly say so. But the value chain and this complexity depends on many other factors that we know it. Generally, cold chains are used across every segment, not only just horticulture. It is used in dairy and ice cream, processed foods, pharma, and many other sectors. So the complexity varies from sector to sector. For example, if it is pharma, it is more critical. If it is ice cream, it is more critical, and dairy is more critical. We know that business in ice cream and dairy does not run without cold chain, but same thing cannot be said about horticulture products, right? So that's the paradox that we have in the cold chain subject. Even in the hospitality industry, typically a 5-star and 7-star hotel chains would need, I think, to my everyone's knowledge, there are about 40 to 50 cold chain equipments. If I have to define deep freezers, visi-cooler, merchandisers also placed in a typical 4-star, 5-star, 7-star properties. So cold chain is everywhere in every segment, in every part of our life. So it is just not to be limited only to the horticulture storages and so on and so forth. But what is the current landscape of cold chain industry right now? Unfortunately, in India, the cold chain industry is in a very, very primitive stages. It is evolving, but it is highly fragmented now, very highly fragmented. The adoption and penetration of cold chain in the country is sub 10%, as against high levels of penetration in markets, Western markets, especially US, Europe, and China. That's largely because our processing content, the level of processing that happens in the country is less than 10%. The highest processing that happens in the country is only for milk, which is about 30-35%. So just imagine, balance 60-65% is also unprocessed in the milk sector. So there is a huge scope. So the level of a processing content is directly proportional to the cold chain penetration. So the processing level goes up, obviously cold chain adoption is likely to go up. But that said, the adoption rates in a couple of other sectors are far better. Like, for example, pharma. You can't imagine taking out a vaccine and putting it across the value chain without cold chain, for sure. There is also concerns around the cold chain viability. There are many of us express concern around cold chain viability, whether cold chains are viable or not. That I will deal with the topic as we go along. But that's probably the reason why there is a cold chain industry limited growth in the current landscape. Unfortunately, if you notice it, the sector has also not attracted any PE investments or VC investments currently. You know, like you see IT, entertainment, electronics, fintech, there are a lot of PEs, a lot of VC funding happens. But unfortunately, it's such an important sector like cold chain, connected with the food security for the world, for India, there's no PE investment so far. So as a consequence, there are very limited number of startups also are there that we see in the in this particular sector. But of late, we see some definitely some light in the tunnel. There are some startups happening in the agri extension areas. There are some startups happening in the post-harvest sector. We're seeing some work to be beginning somewhere. So that's a good news for all of us. But what are the challenges? If you look at what are the reasons for this sector to be at a very suboptimal level now? There are more structural challenges as we notice. You know, in any sector, the structural challenges will have more challenges to address than non-structural challenges. There are very few operational reasons here. The first structural challenge is a fragmented farm holdings. If you know the farm sector well, the size of acreage is around 2 to 3 acres per farmer. So what do we expect out of that farmer producing in that small holding of 2 to 3 acres? Obviously, the throughput of coming from a 2 to 3 acres is best 50% of that utilized by himself. The balance is available for the market to be used. So that's the biggest challenge, and that's a highly structural challenge this industry faces. Why this is structural challenge is, unless you have an aggregation coming in the sector, you will have a huge issues connected with the growth. Because only when there is an aggregation, there is a scale. When there is a scale, there is an investment happens. This is a simple business principle that we see in pharma. I will draw you a parallel comparison between pharma and horticulture sector. In a typical pharma manufacturing or ice cream manufacturing, the manufacturers takes the ownership of shipping the goods from his manufacturing point till to the consumption, right? Till the distribution or last mile. But that is not so in case of horticulture produce. In horticulture produce, farmer produces, right? He gives out to somebody in between. The somebody gives out to third party in between. By the time it reaches the market, it changes 5-6 hands. So there's no ownership of farm produce happening from a farmer end to the consumption point. This is also another structural issue, why this industry is not being able to grow, why penetration levels are low as compared to pharma and processed foods. Okay. There is also another key structural issue, but I think is not something that we can't manage. We can easily manage. India is a very diverse country. What is grown in north, not grown in south. What is grown in south cannot be grown in north because of the climate issues. So what happens is there is a market for what is grown in north and south, and there's a market for what is grown in south in north. So how do we reach them? Each regions with about close to 1,500 kilometers to 2,000 kilometers. So this is another structural challenge. Reason being that the current infrastructure for reaching the produce from one corner of the country to other corner is very, very, I would say, suboptimal right now. So there's a great challenge on account of this as well, why the cold chain in the country has not taken off in a big way. I touched about the topic of viability. Many of us think there is a myth around that. Cold chain can be constructed, somebody can make an investment, can be hired it out. But we have seen time and again, it's been our experience for many decades that any cold chain investment made for rental purpose is not going to be viable at all. It is that model, which I would call as the arbitrage model. Many of people may not like this arbitrage word here itself, but I would actually put it this way. Don't make investment for the sake of investing in a cold chain. If you're serious about making business out of a produce, a commodity, then invest in cold chain. Together, cold chain investment with the business in a commodity or that particular produce will make a winning combination for as a business unit. So this is again an issue connected with the why cold chain has not grown to its leaps and bounds in the country. The fourth challenge that we see is in the country, unfortunately, we are of course made, we started making some inroads into that side. The market levers are not very great, if you look at it, which means the organized retail has not taken shape at all still. There's a long way to go as compared to what the Western world in terms of the organized retail. We know for sure that organized retail, as and when it happens, is going to drive that investment in the cold chain sector. So these are some of the challenges that we see why the cold chain industry in general is limiting in its way. But is it that the bad scene around cold chain? It's not actually. So what lies in future? There are key drivers for the growth of cold chain that I listed as below. The first is the per capita consumption. You know that per capita consumption of food is growing year on year. You take ice cream, milk, processed foods, anything that you consume perishable is steadily going up. I remember in my childhood days, paneer was not available at all whenever we wanted. Today, paneer is available. Even down south, you go to any nook and corner, paneer is available, right? So that's the change in the per capita consumption, right? So this change is definitely augurs well for the growth of cold chain industry going forward. The second important lever, I would say, driver for growth of cold chain is a rapid shift in the consumption patterns, of the generations. Today, the younger generation likes more of a processed food. Obviously, that's a key enabler for processed foods. My son and daughter would prefer to have more burgers and pizzas than me and my wife. So obviously, that's the trend that we're going to see in the years to come. I'm sure this will definitely trigger a lot of investment in the cold chain sector as well going forward. So these are two drivers which will drive this industry to a greater heights going forward. Government is also doing its bit definitely. We have seen recently that agri reforms, which have been, in a big way. Of course, there are controversy around these reforms. I'm not going to get into the controversial subject of agri reforms, but all said and done, the reforms will definitely pave some way for normalization of this particular sector as well. Another interesting driver that I would definitely speak about here is many fast food chains which are coming to India have brought in best practices into country as well in the hospitality segment. Name any quick service restaurants that multinational chains which have come in, they brought in with them the need, the penetration for a cold chain as well. I know we work with many of these fast food chains. They all enabled growth of cold chain in the back end. So some of these best practices, best examples, drivers are available for us to take note of it. Another good driver that I see will be a key driver for this sector is food safety norms. All of us want to have a safe food, right? And FSSAI is doing a great job in terms of coming out with the food safety regulations, very stringent regulations in that. So in the melee of regulations, cold chain will definitely find its place, and this will also be another trigger for this industry to grow in a big way. So to put it, in a nutshell, this sector is a very sunrise sector. And there is a huge potential, but is highly untapped at the moment. In our own context, also in a business context, we keep asking this question saying that when will this become highly scalable sector? I think that day is not very far off. Maybe in 4-5 years, I think this sector will become leaps and bounds for sure. So what we need now, if you ask my personal opinion, country has seen green revolution, white revolution, which has helped the country in scaling up a productivity, and we don't see any challenge in that. We are producing enough for the country to consume. What we now need is, I take this passion to call this as we need blue revolution. When I say blue revolution, we need a revolution in terms of the cold chain penetration, right? So that's the revolution that I see that should happen for the country to be able to grow this cold chain to another scale. All of us stakeholders have a great responsibility to save food, reduce food wastage at every level. We are all the stakeholders in the country. Unless you and me save food wherever possible, this country will witness a huge challenge on serving the food needs of the country, right? So we need furthermore youngsters. A lot of youngsters have to come into the sector. A lot of startups have to come in, both in the extension side, technology side. Then only this sector also will attract a lot of PE funding, VC funding. That will enable the growth of a cold chain sector in a big way. So on a Blue Star side, as a final comment, we being a leading player in the industry, we always play a role in contributing to the growth of this sector. We can, if anybody, any stakeholders interested to take our help in terms of the skill building advocacy areas, they are more welcome to talk to us. And we play our role in building this sector always in many ways, directly or indirectly.
Now, in this session of TCB webinar on hot opportunities in cold chain, I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Gopal Ahuja. Mr. Ahuja is the chairman of Komal Exotic Spices Private Limited. He is the chairman of Food Processing Committee of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. He is heading World Globe Council as chairman, offering authentic information on World Globe scenario to all the stakeholders. He is also the chairman of India-Indonesia Business Association, offering agribusiness advices to the governments on trade pacts under India-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement. Today, Mr. Ahuja is going to discuss on the opportunities for cold chain industry in farm sector. So let's welcome Mr. Gopal Ahuja ji.
I am the end user of the services that you are speaking about today, the cold chain. But from the user perspective, there are certain issues that I will come to. But I was very, very surprised. I mean, it's not a new information, but after so many years, still we are lagging behind so much in the capacity and utilization of creation of the cold chain in the food supply chain story. So much so that I was shocked at numbers, as Mr. Reddy also said, 40 to 50,000 crores per annum only from the losses in horticultural losses. And I definitely corroborate these figures with you, Mr. Reddy. And just a small incident of my childhood in late 60s, my first interaction with the cold chain. As you said, refrigerators are the last mile of the cold chain. I'm reminded of a very funny incident, how innovative our parents were at that time. We had Diwali time and the son-in-laws would visit the home, and we being the kids were entrusted with certain tasks. So my task was to take the jelly mix to the neighboring pharmacy store, a chemist shop, and use his refrigerator for cooling the jelly. And the things went on, and the son-in-laws would always complain, how come your jelly is smelling of medicines all the time? But the worst incident, one of the days, the jelly was with the chemist and I was busy playing with my friends and I forgot to collect it back. And the chemist shut shop and went away home. And my guests were left high and dry without a dessert. And I got a good whacking the very next day. And that's how cold storage and refrigeration will always remain with me throughout my life. So coming back to our sorry state of affair, almost a quarter of the population of the world is in India, which is malnourished. I mean, quarter of the malnourished population is in India. And as you rightly said, it is 44 to 50,000 crores. That is, some people are reporting also 1,000 crores lost due to horticultural mishandling, not just because of cold chain, but there are other food chain supply constraints also. And especially if I go to breakup of this story, the highest grosser here is fruits and vegetables, which is up to 16% of the total lost every year due to this lacunae of improper handling of the material. So there's a list of agricultural produce that is posting losses every year. Of course, these are very close to the actual figure. Nobody can arrive at actual figure, but these are these studies. These should be an eye-opener to the policymakers who are constantly browbeating that they're promoting cold chain, they're promoting subsidies and things like that, policies. But yet we don't see the growth rate is higher than the services or the infrastructure that you are projecting to provide. It's too slow, too late in the day. We are able to store only 2% of the farm produce in temperature controlled environment. I was shocked to know, as compared to 8% in Asia Pacific sector and 85% in Europe and North America. We are that backward. I mean, West 2% and West 85%, being one of the largest producers of agri commodities. Punjab was the only state in India which has surplus storage facilities of the nature. I don't know, Mr. Reddy, this information may be a little outdated, but you may correct me on that. The government has sought now, with the change in government policy, there's a earth-shaking reform that has been declared by the present government, that freeing the farm sector from all the controls and giving them the freedom of choice to sell anywhere they like, whatever the produce is. And now it is an onus on us to create that ecosystem. I hope we have not put the cart before the horse by announcing the freedom, but not creating the ecosystem yet. So that policymakers have to be really, they have to push the pedal now. And if really this freedom of choice has to bear any fruit, then we have to be ready with the support system. And cold chain is one of the key factors in the whole story. Unfortunately, we talk about big capacities of cold storages. However, 80% of it is being utilized by potato and the related commodities which are having a longer shelf life. As Mr. Reddy rightly pointed out, cold storage as an independent business is not suitable, but you need to have a business, like if you are doing some business in potatoes or onions, or I come back from the spice background, it is always advisable to have a cold storage and having a parallel business running along with it, which is cold storage dependent. So Mr. Reddy, if I'm reading you correct, the advantages would be that you know the pros and cons of the storage technicalities. You can really influence other similar users of the facility. You can also influence your potential buyers as an added service to them, offering them the, as they call it in the market, Teji Mandi reports, and give them the storage facilities also. Like we have the wine exchange in London. They give you the guidance along with the infrastructure of storage and dispatch of the material as and when you wish to withdraw. So similarly, I think I'm totally in agreement with you, Mr. Reddy, that when you say that a business alongside the cold storage and the combination of the two is the key for potential success of this investment. I'm very thankful to you for pointing out this to me. Looking at the future scenario, we are expecting, currently we are having 600 million tons of food product, the demand for 600 million, and we are expecting to add another 400 million by 2025. That's not very far. I mean, 600, add to that 400 million, that's making it almost a billion. And this has come from none other than Ecozen, people who are doing the survey on these stories. And following 2025, we are further adding up 2.5% year-on-year growth to this sector. Now, lack of refrigerated transport are said to be one of the biggest contributors to food losses, as there is a major gap in connectivity from cold storage through the refrigerated trucks. This study indicates that required capacity is 53,000 odd vehicles of 9 metric tons each, whereas as opposed to that, we have just about 10,000 vehicles of 9 metric ton. So it's almost, we are operating at around 20% of the available demand. I mean, there's a huge gap. Why isn't anybody looking at this? They would rather prefer the produce to go waste, produce which require very immediate post-harvest treatment, like flowers or berries or some of the fruits. I mean, it's a very lucrative field to look at. Mr. Reddy, PE and VCs have definitely invested a lot in logistics, especially with hub and wheel models, and Bhiwandi, we are seeing a lot of activity in outside Mumbai. I don't know why they are not looking at this cold storage and its connectivity. Maybe the demand that they are assessing is still not lucrative enough. What comes to my mind is that, as you rightly said, it's still a very fragmented market. I would go a step further and call it that it is micro-fragmented market. So to address this issue, I would say that why don't we have micro cold storages or movable cold storages using latest solar technology and other issues. You are better equipped with, Mr. Reddy. I won't venture into that area. But what is my requirement is have portable storage facilities to attend to the marginal community. Like if I were to shift my residence from one place to another, I would carry my refrigerator. So I would expect the farmer also to share and use the facilities along with his other colleagues. From a customer point of view, what I would like out of my cold storage, this is important for the service providers, that I find it very easy when I'm able to refer my customer to the cold storage who is given the inspection of the lot that I'm intending to sell very easily. So my business becomes smoother rather than bringing the stuff to my godown and then showing it to him and then sending it back to him. I think if the cold storage has a facility, that will add to their value. Just-in-time deliveries are to be fine-tweaked and they are to be managed still in a better way. In and around Mumbai, especially in New Bombay, where I come from, things are pretty smooth because the proximity of the market and the cold storage is not very much. And the systems, the software systems are all well in place. So deliveries happen within an hour or two at the most. Ease of communication. Now you have the digital technology at your beck and call. You can use a real-time stock report, maintaining proper segregation, and its lot-wise records. These are back-end operations which will smoothen your process and attract more non-participants into using your cold storage. Regular maintenance should also, as you said, FSSAI has been becoming more and more rigid. So regular maintenance with fumigation to prevent infestation and bacterial load. Nobody is giving attention to bacterial load. This should be, frequent swabs should be taken at the cold storage facilities to know the bacterial load. Swabs. So whether they are culturable lots of bacteria or not. Because if you're going to be dealing with ready to eats, etc., this is going to be playing a very important role. Tariffs should be commensurate with temperature. I am using a sub-zero temperature. I may be charged a little higher as opposed to a person who wants his commodities like spices. I am comfortable with 12 to 15 degrees of storage with requisite humidity. So I expect that my charges should be little lesser than the normal charges that you levy to other users, because your temperature is going to be your cost factor. This is what my understanding is. Reduction in billing cycle. Earlier we used to have a monthly billing cycle, then we came to weekly, then they again went back to fortnightly. I mean, now you have software and other things in place, you have apps. So if you put the real billing cycle, there's actually no need in and out. How much is the time you've used the facility? That should be easily calculative. Earlier, it was manual process. So the cycle was monthly or weekly or fortnightly. Now you can go in for real-time issues with the apps. Add-on services like fruit ripening gas chambers, I'm told, especially for bananas and mangoes in the season, would bring more value to your property. Now, Mr. Reddy, can you guide me also later on that I am in a terminal market at Navi Mumbai. The problem is cost of land. What should be the optimal cost of land for a cold storage to be viable? This is a very tricky issue for us in Navi Mumbai. So the pre-existing cold storages are better off because they had good land bank with them, as opposed to a new entrant who's trying to enter the field now. So what would be the locational advantage versus the cost of the land? If you can guide us through, I'll be really appreciative.
Now in this session of TCB webinar on cold chain hot opportunities, we'd like to invite Mr. Hari Nagendra Prasad. Mr. Prasad is the Senior Manager Product Management at Tecumseh Products Company. He holds MTech in refrigeration and air conditioning with hands-on experience in commercial, retail, and industrial refrigeration systems and product development. Tecumseh is a leading global manufacturer of hermetic reciprocating, rotary, and scroll compressors, as well as offering a complete line of condensing units and systems for use in residential and commercial refrigeration and air conditioning applications. Today, Mr. Nagendra Prasad is going to discuss about cold chain opportunity for compressors industry. So delegates, let's welcome Mr. Nagendra Prasad.
A warm welcome to all once again. And today I'm going to talk about the refrigeration solutions that are needed by the cold chain and the emerging products that could really bridge some of the challenges that have been listed by the earlier speakers, Mr. Ahuja and Mr. Srinivas. So before to go into the presentation, I'll just give a brief background about Tecumseh. Tecumseh is widely known for energy efficient as well as reliable commercial refrigeration compressors and value-added systems like condensing units and complete refrigeration solutions in refrigeration industry. So Tecumseh has its presence on 4 continents. You could see that we have in North America, US, and in South America, in Brazil, and in Europe, we have in France, and in India, and in Asia, we have in Malaysia and in India. So with 4,100 wholesalers across the globe, we have a very good distribution network. And in India, we have about 300 distribution locations. As been spoke by Mr. Srinivas and Ahuja, we see that the cold chain is not complete with certain fragmented attention like cold stores at certain locations. Now, if you could see it on the slide, I have just pointed out several steps in the cold chain process that are very important. You could see that when we try to procure or produce the F&B, the produce that we try to get from the farms and at the place of production, from the moment it is produced and to the place where it is consumed, the temperature of the product has to be maintained so that it will have the expected shelf life and the quality at the right end consumer like us. So when you see the background process, when you see, we will see that the vegetables on a shelf on a supermarket, open showcase or something, what's happened on the background is, I tried to attempt to put that picture here. You could see that at the place of production, once the produce is produced, it needs to be quickly brought down to the right temperatures to hold its shelf life for further processing. Once it is done there, then it will go to the processing where it could be packed or segregated. So you need some storage facilities as well as the chilling processes for cold water treatment like that. Those facilities in these places where you need to maintain that process, what you have maintained in the previous step. And when you try to ship from this processing location to a central warehouse, you need a reefer transport which maintains the temperature of the product at the desired shelf life. Then from the warehouse to the final consumption, where people like us buy this one, like in mandis or sabji bazaars or hypermarkets or supermarkets, you again need a customized delivery solutions. In the previous step, you will have big containers, but in this step, you will have a customized quantities. And at the retail, you could see that the proximity stores or small supermarkets will have this kind of consumption centers. Now, if you could see in my slide at the below, you see that there is a blue highlighted picture where we see that at these steps, what are the refrigeration solutions that needs to maintain the product temperature. So we could see that there are cold rooms, like when I say cold rooms, at these conditions of production, they will have pre-cooling or blast freezing. So I classified them as cold rooms. And then at the process cooling, maybe if I take an example for an F&B processing unit, you need cold water at about 6 to 8 degrees centigrade so that you clean them. At the same time, you pack them. So you remove some of the heat while you are processing so that you can save some energy cost not to do this again in a cold store. Then the refrigerated containers and trucks to have them to distribute it to the big warehouses. Here in the big warehouses, since the capacity of the stores will be huge, so they will be having a compressor rack or centralized refrigeration systems. And at the end, where in the retail consumption centers, we'll have display cases that has been storing these products. But the main aim will be maintaining the previous temperature control that has been done to extend the shelf life and texture and quality to the customers. So you see that on all these processes, we need refrigeration to control the temperature and maintain the temperature. So this is a perfect opportunity for all the compressors. Maybe it is either semi-hermetic or hermetic or made condensing units. We have the opportunities across the cold chain for these processes where we need temperature control. So, but the times keep on changing. Like we see that as always, the industry keeps on evolving and emerging. We are seeing new methods of farming. Like we see, if I take an example at Europe, they are making a container where they can produce strawberries inside the container itself. And the farm sizes, which we used to see typically in a land, people are trying to convert to the terrace gardening. So what it does say is that the quantities that are being produced in huge quantities may be reduced to small quantities for the ease of shipment and this one. So when we are seeing that emerging farming methods, that solutions would require customized loads and last mile deliveries. So today I'm going to present those solutions that are available from Tecumseh for those last mile delivery solutions. So here you can see there are specific needs in cold chain. When I say the specific needs in cold chain, if you see the coming retail supermarkets or the proximity to the residential area, it is driving the low noise level requirements for the refrigeration equipment. So when you see the Tecumseh Silensis range, it's the lowest silent condensing unit that is available on the market. And also the additional feature is that there is a challenge on maintaining the energy cost. This is one of the key critical components to decide which way to go on the cost per kg for storage. So the variable capacity feature will increase the part load efficiency so that the energy costs are optimal. And you will also see that the time to install is also critical, because when you are trying to build a cold chain, typically a cold store, the time that takes for making the insulation panels, doors, and the refrigeration work has a considerable amount of time. So there are solutions that are available to ease this installation time and keep plug and play solutions. So we have that kind of outdoor condensing units which can reduce the installation time. And then the last, the complementing part, where the indoor side or the inside the cold room side, it is very important to maintain the temperature and as well as the humidity. As we see, the fruits and vegetables are sensitive for the relative humidity percentage levels. When you are losing that, you will lose the produce weight and the quality. So you need to have matching unit coolers that have an optimum performance to have higher efficiency as well as overall performance in the cold store or cold chain. Now, if you see, there is a wide range of products that are available here. Today, I'm just going to speak on the opportunity that will come up. Basically, looking at the situation of today, there could be a good vaccine distribution where the opportunities could increase. So today we see that how we are going to see how the vaccines and medicine are typically transported. What are the challenges in while transporting, and why it is difficult to maintain that? And what are the solutions that can be that are bringing by Tecumseh are having an improvement or effective impact on the maintaining temperature and throughout the cold chain? So if you see a cold chain, for the typical cold chain, from the place of manufacturing, you again need an insulated van. And then if you see an insulated van, and then you will have an airport, some will be imported. So you need the temperature to be maintained while it is transported in the air also. So we have the dedicated reefer containers that could maintain the temperature. So, and from the airports to the central warehouse for the vaccine, and then from there to the last point on the primary healthcare center, you need to maintain the temperature of the vaccines and pharmaceuticals at the right temperatures to have its efficiency and activity. So what are the challenges in tight temperature control? When I say tight temperature control, you could see that different products of vaccines requires different temperature range. So you need to maintain the temperature within those acceptable range to have the vaccine impact. If you lose this temperature control, you will have an impact of reduced efficiency of the vaccine itself, or the contamination, or there could be the expiry or inactivation of the vaccine itself. And when we think of losses in the pharmaceutical area in terms of these challenges, it could be expensive and sensitive too. One is, I talked about the temperature control, but maintaining a constant temperature control is also another challenge, because we see that it has to be maintained at a proper temperature while it is inventory or during transit or at the shipping warehouses. But what are the challenges at these locations? You could have limited power options in some of the stages, or different ambient temperatures, or no refrigerations in some locations, and could be customized quantities. All may not require huge quantities, but you need to have a smaller quantities also to be shipped in this one. So how are we, how these Masterflux products are going to solve these challenges that we are facing in the pharmaceutical for the temperature control? One of the features that is required is a capacity modulation. When I say capacity modulation, your refrigeration system should be able to deliver dynamic capacity as needed. Like if you are maintaining on a higher ambient and you are requiring the temperature to be maintained at a faster rate, you need a higher capacity. And at the same time, at the low ambient, you need not to have an excess capacity so that it will bring down below the lower limit of the storage. So adopting the system capacity as per the needs of the vaccines is very important. So these compressors are having a variable speed capacity, so it will address the temperature control. And the other feature is the compressors are can work on the DC power, that is battery powered. So it can operate on either using an off power, or you can use based on a battery, and power supply can be independent of location or transport. What I mean by this is either you are transporting on a truck or a plane or ship, it doesn't matter, it can work on its own. So it solves the purpose of having no refrigeration or no power at some locations. Reliable technology, as we say that the importance of temperature control is very important. The reliable technology, because this is on the mobile applications where you will have a lot of challenges on the road and transportation methods. So the compressors are designed to take down the tough conditions of mobile applications. Another important feature that comes with these compressors are light and compact, because for any transport or mobile application, the weight plays a vital role in having the fuel consumptions as well as the cost for operating. And when we look at the compressors, Sierra is the range where we have the Masterflux DC compressors. This is compact and it can work. When I said it works on a DC voltage, it can work in the range of 1200 volts to 600 volts DC. and having a cooling capacity modulation from half a kilowatt to 4.4 kilowatt and available with all the current and new refrigerants. So you could see that it is quite compact and can maintain the temperatures very well within the well accepted limits. The another thing that is very important for the last mile solutions are the customized delivery. When you have fewer quantities, where you have a space as extreme constraint for the last mile delivery, you have micro compact DC compressors that can work on this one. So the Atlas and Mesa, they are of the size of less than of a Coke can, or I would say it's less than 130 millimeters, where you can have this one compressors. Also, to add to the solutions, that what we said, that when we have capacity constraints to deliver the small quantities, we see that the electric mobile refrigeration units, which can really play a key role in the cold chain. The traditional trucks that use the refrigeration compressors, which are belt driven, and when you compare these refrigeration units that be working on a battery device, are quite efficient, and they do not require any stand-on power. So whether the vehicle is running or idling, it can maintain the temperature without the engine support, as well as the efficiency, like the load of this refrigeration unit is not on the engine. So your operational costs of the refrigeration truck and maintenance are also low. And the options are available for both low temperature for frozen food and for the positive temperature for fresh and dairy products. Like when these are being transported in airplanes or air shipments, one of the prime importance is of the safety. So the compressors that are being shown on the DC power are being used by one of the customers, CSafe, where he is having these two containers. These can operate on a standby power up to 10 to 13 hours in the field while in distribution. It doesn't require any power, so it can be useful for air shipment as well. So these compressors are highly reliable when we speak of redundancy or the reliability of the refrigeration system for the vaccines. So we see that these compressors with optimum technology for the mobile applications, we feel that these are very safe in maintaining the temperatures.
COVID-19 is having impact on almost every industry. And there are positive impact as well as negative impact. So to start with, Mr. Reddy, could you tell us that what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the Indian cold chain market?
Actually, the COVID-19 has, I would say, not relatively impacted the cold chain industry per se. Actually, it has only accentuated the importance of a cold chain industry, post-COVID. That's what I happen to write and talk about it as well. The simple thing is that during a lockdown, you have to look at the COVID situation during lockdown and post-lockdown. During lockdown, all of us wanted the perishables to be delivered at our house, right? Because we were not allowed to go out and shop outside. So the challenges were maintaining the supply chain, right from a farm gate till to our doorstep. So that was the main challenge. So obviously that period has highlighted the importance of entire cold chain, end-to-end cold chain, the first point, because we all felt some of the places, some of the locations were not even getting enough fruits and vegetables required for the day-to-day consumption as well. So had it been a laid out, evolved cold chain, things would have been much better. So had it been, say, in Western world and all that, I think things would have been much, normalized and handled better in terms of the availability of the fruits and vegetables or any other perishable matters for that matter. Second thing is in terms of the infrastructure maintenance, I felt for one that probably in a country like ours, we need more of a remote monitoring technologies to manage the cold chain infrastructure, because people are not allowed to go to the, I would say, installations to carry out the regular routine maintenance or track the system performance, all of that. So probably this country would need more of the remote monitoring systems, remote monitoring technologies going forward. That's one of the learnings that I take from COVID. Third important thing is, I think probably COVID, I would say, whether you call it an opportunity or a challenge or whether distress, COVID has definitely is going to open up opportunities in the pharma sector in a big way, consequent to this vaccine distribution, delivery, and all of that. While COVID has given a very negative, I would say, impact on certain sectors connected with the cold chain, I would say sectoral consequences. Like, for example, hospitality industry. Hospitality industry, it has a serious impact on many of those hospitality industry. When I say hospitality, the people were not traveling, there's no tourism, hotel chains were not open at all. So the business connected with that is completely impacted. As a consequence of that, the requirement of a cold chain, the maintenance of a cold chain, all that also has a doubling effect, a domino effect on this whole ecosystem. While another sector that has taken a big beating was the ice cream sector, to be very honest. Dairy has not really taken that beating, but ice cream has taken a beating. In fact, we lost typical summer. The summer season was very crucial for the ice cream sector. Ice cream consumption happens to go up in summer. So this April, May, June months, the months which I think most of the ice cream manufacturers have really suffered in a sectoral level. That also has put a lot of strain on the cold chain demand for cold chain equipments, and also cold chain maintenance. So it has both positives and negatives, but learnings have been plenty, especially the remote monitoring. The need for remote monitoring system solutions is much more, I would say, comes out clearly than before. So that's my takeaway from COVID.
So considering this remote monitoring technology, what you are talking about, is Blue Star bringing new technologies or introducing new technologies in that particular domain?
Yes, we are indeed planning that. We are off the mark in the sense we've already done that. So I think soon we'll have, we have the technologies already. It's not that we don't have it, but we are actually recalibrating in the context of a learnings from a COVID.
Okay. So you mean to say that COVID is somehow actually pushing the industry to innovate new technologies which will actually meet future requirement?
That's right. So the bigger point here, Mr. Roy, sitting here, can I manage my cold chain equipments, across the country?
Right.
That's the first question that comes to my mind. Now it is possible, it is feasible. So we can do that.
COVID has not impacted the industry. In fact, it has been a boon to the food industry, especially with the shutdown of hospitality sector. More of the food consumption has been, people have become more health conscious and selective about freshness of the food, etc. So I think especially spices were known to be playing a very, very crucial role in building up your immunity towards COVID. And so the demand on spices from worldwide went up tremendously. And what with a lot of publicity by our Ayush Ministry, etc., through the Prime Minister's speeches, the fillip was given to the spice industry. And of course, ready to eats, etc., have gone up multifold. And definitely cold storages had a key role to play in maintaining that uninterrupted supply chain. Thanks to our inroads made into digital sector and preparedness, I would say, a lot of impact of demonetization, which resulted in online payments and digital payments. This has ameliorated a lot in the supply chain. The ease of payment and supply chains were maintained quite well by various online food players also, and people like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. They have done pretty well as far as India is concerned. There are no issues at all. Initially, in the first couple of weeks, there were issues due to migrating labor and delivery boys, etc. There was a paucity, but then it recovered back well. And a lot of other sectors were shut down practically. So there was a migration to this sector, to the food supply chain sector. And then the issue was pretty eased within a matter of days. There was no shutdown at all in the mandis also, in Navi Mumbai especially, which is a terminal market. Dry fruits sales have gone up tremendously also. Added to that factor, the dry fruits prices luckily went down due to international geopolitical situation, China vis-a-vis America and Iran vis-a-vis America. So this added boon to the sector.
Yeah, one of the key impact is that in terms of business, definitely we anticipated that it will go down when we are trying to see at the end of the month of June or July where the unlock phase will start. But definitely with the export orders such as coming from Europe and Middle East went well beyond our expectations. So in a way, the COVID has when it went well than we anticipated. We thought that it will go down when the industry will restart. But on the technology front, definitely the solutions that are being developed are aptly suited for the upcoming vaccine distribution, last mile delivery, and as well as for the cold chain, where you are using lower customized loads, as well as standalone refrigeration systems where there is no power backup, will always help complement the vaccine efficiency and vaccine distribution.
So is it India-specific development, or you are developing this technology on the global level and bringing it to India?
Yeah, the technology is available on global level, while it is available for all the customers across the globe. It's not based on Indian development. But if you see the worldwide the pandemic, and you have the situation where you have such requirements, not only on pharmaceutical. Think of a industry of food. For example, you want to deliver a cake at a refrigerated temperature. You know, some of the practical problems is that if you don't maintain the temperature, you will lose the writings on the cake. So you need some kind of refrigeration that can hold those writings. So it could, given a situation, the technology that is developed is can be used on a scalable level from local and to global. So it's not a India development technology.
So is it available in the Indian market as of now?
Yes, the compressors are available. In fact, if you remember, we are the first supplier of electric compressor for our parallel industry automobile, which are converting to electric vehicles. And we are the first company to deliver the electric vehicle for the air conditioning. And you would see most of them in roads, as well as we are working with certain dedicated technocrats who are developing the solutions for the pharmaceutical as well as cold chains of solar-based energies.
Recent developments in the restrictions imposed on import from China, how it is going to impact the industry?
Well, it has impacted the industry also. You are aware of the impact on restrictions placed on technologies, preloaded compressors with the coolants, etc. But as far as my field is concerned, in the food sector, since China was a major competitor in buying those products from worldwide, whether it is Iran or from US, so adversity on China has resulted in a boon for India, that we are procuring those same materials at much cheaper rate, because India is a wide market and China is a wide market. But when you shut down one market, the other market gets the benefit of spillover as far as prices are concerned. As far as impact of imports is concerned on the demand for cold storage spaces in and around point of imports like Nhava Sheva or JNPT port, where we are situated in Navi Mumbai in close proximity. There is a huge demand for the space from the dry fruit importers, from the spice importers, mind you, importers, I'm not talking about exporters. A lot of high value key spices are being imported from all over the world. And that's where I was requesting the players in the industry to look at a temperature slot of 12 to 15 degrees centigrade and price it accordingly. So in commensurate with the power consumption expected at that level. Yes, international scenario, China has been a major impact, not impact, rather boon on the sector. And sanctions on Iran also have played a key role in the prices of the dry fruits, which leads to huge imports into India, and which has led to a good demand of cold storages in and around Mumbai and also around Delhi. These are two key centers where cold storage demand from spice and dry fruit industry is there.
Whether the whole supply chain has gone back to the pre-COVID levels is what we need to look at it. If the supply chain is limping back to the pre-COVID levels, I don't see any challenge in the price front. But I think international geopolitical scenarios still don't give an impression or don't indicate an impression that it is still back to the pre-COVID level. So till such time it becomes normal to pre-COVID levels, I think there could be some fluctuations in terms of the availability of components and parts and all of that. So not necessarily the price should have in a consequence of this, but I think the question of availability becomes a challenge, I think, till it reaches the pre-COVID level. Mr. Ahuja, just to take on your question of temperature pricing for 12 to 15 degrees, yes, there are technologies available. And of course, since I'm representing Blue Star, so probably we can have a dialogue offline on the subject. We can guide you in terms of what could be the best solution for catering to the 12 to 15 degrees centigrade. You are right in saying that the investment required for a 2 to 8 has to be different from 12 to 15. There has to be a difference. So there will be difference. It's not that the same investment you need to make for 2 to 8 and 12 to 15 temperature requirement. Having said that, we can talk to this subject on offline. And you also mentioned very important point about micro cold storages. In fact, industry is ready with the micro cold storages. Okay, I'm using the word cold storages still because the industry uses cold storages. So here, when I say cold storages, today, the technology is available to construct what is called a storage for 2 tons, 3 tons, 4 tons, 5 tons, 10 tons. It is not that when you talk about a cold storage, you have to imagine a massive structure, massive storages and all that. The days are gone. Today, technologies are available to offer solutions with modular technology, modular panels with the refrigeration systems. Systems are also modular in nature. We can construct the solutions to any size of the customer, starting from a 1 ton storage up to any size that you need. So accordingly, that refrigeration system sizing happens according to the pricing. For example, you would know that there are a lot of farmer markets which are run by the governments in many state governments. Some states will have a farmers market. Some states will have different names associated with that. In those mandis, we have experience of setting up a small cold chains, small cold storages to cater to just that market surplus, which is maybe a 10 tons, 15 tons, 20 tons and all that. And that's not going to be a big investment. It's a very small investment. And power-wise, it is not at all a power guzzler at all. So I would give you some sense of what could be the power requirement for say about 2 to 3 tons of a storage approximately. It doesn't take more than your 1.5 ton air conditioner. Typically if I have to just put that just in a comparative terms. Okay, of course, cold storage is used for 24/7 while air conditioning is not. But just to give you a comparative sense, it is not really power guzzling. So always there is a myth saying that cold storage means so much power and all that. The technologies are available. So anybody willing to discuss that, they will be ready to answer that question.
Mr. Ahuja, could you address the second question? What norms to be discussed while selecting cold chains? Is there any norms as such?
Yes, definitely. Norms are not set by government. It's by ease of operating. What are your requirements? Proximity, right. Location, what is the nature of your product? What are the temperatures you're looking at? How frequently you're going to deposit and withdraw the product at the cold storage? I'm typically linked with international markets. So my linkage with the entry point, that is Nhava Sheva port, is important. My terminal market is in Vashi. So proximity to the Vashi market is important. My dispatches happen directly from the cold storage to other parts of the country. So transport linkages with the cold storage are important. I may not need refrigerated transporting vehicles. my nature of the product is such, spices and dry fruits. But definitely pack size is important. What is the ideal size that you would be marketing your product at? Because the price of the cold storage usage is based on the volume that you occupy, the space that you occupy in the cold storage. Besides that, I would like to impress upon Mr. Roy that there has to be some system by the cold storages to educate the users of the cold storage about acclimatizing their product packages before opening them. And if the ambient humidity is very high during monsoons, especially in and around Mumbai, it goes up to 90-95% humidity. And at that time, people withdraw their dry fruits, the precious dry fruits from the cold storage, and open the pack immediately to give an inspection and then shut it down. Then all the moisture has been condensed on the product and may lead to fungus formation and aflatoxin, etc. The loss of the value is there. So these basic finer aspects of cold storages should educate the users rather than they coming back with their plethora of complaints about improper storage.
Right.
What we do is break it into carry forward cost per month, per kilo, how much is the effect and how is the market supporting it? Am I seeing an uptrend in the market? Am I going to be more remunerative if I hold the product in the cold storage, or is it better off that I sell it off today? So these are the dynamic factors. There's no general rule as such. You need to have that business acumen of arriving at a very, very commercial judgment. What is the cost of carrying forward per kilo in my kind of a trade? So per month, per kilo, price of holding it in the cold storage is 1 rupee, and the market I'm expecting to go up by 5 rupees, 10 rupees, then better hold it off. And if I'm expecting the market to go downward, better dispose it off. So price in my kind of product of the cold storage is not a very important factor because the products themselves are costlier. But if you're dealing in cheaper products, a lower range of spices like coriander seeds or maybe red chilies or something, then possibly your carrying cost will play a major impact, and you need to arrive at an optimal situation about the market trend and your carrying forward cost.
What will be the next capacity addition of cold storage facilities if the vaccine has to reach every person in India? So, very broad question, Mr. Reddy, would you like to address that?
Yeah, so I think it's a very relevant question. What is known around vaccine, there are only 2-3 facts that are known right now. There are always the news reports that the vaccine would be made available sometime in the first quarter of next year. I think that seems to be a reality, and we are all hoping for that. I know that reality has to be really reality. Second question is, I think the government has announced that it's going to be a government-led program. It is, I think, still not announced that it will be put in the hands of a private players like private hospitals or private clinics and all that. Third question is whether we have the right infrastructure. I think before asking that whether we have a right infrastructure, we should ask the question that how much of a vaccine we can produce in a monthly basis, in a 6 months basis, or 1 year basis. That's the first question that we do ask. I think currently, how many players would be ready with a vaccine, that deliverable vaccine or administrable vaccine? Once that is known, I think the rest of the estimates for the infrastructure can all be done. I don't think that's a big problem. But your question is whether we are ready with the infrastructure. At the moment, my answer to that question would be, we are also, of course, evaluating that subject in many forms. Government UIP program is strong. You know that UIP program of a government has been there for a long time. So for the decades together, that UIP program has been delivering and administering vaccination programs to the country. UIP program involves various vaccines to be given to children, vaccines to be given to adults, all kinds of vaccine. So if you know how much of a volume of vaccine handled by UIP in a year, that gives you an idea of whether country needs more infrastructure or less infrastructure. So I think there is enough of infrastructure created already in the country on a UIP network. I think, in my view, that I think unless we know the throughput of vaccines coming in per month, it will be difficult to judge whether the current infrastructure would be good enough or not. Number one. Number two is, second challenge would be the priority sector for administering the vaccine. The government has already said that they've identified some 300 million people or so for priority administration of the vaccine. So I think obviously this whole program is going to take close to about not less than 12 months to 18 months in our estimates. It is not going to be done within 2 months, 3 months and all that. Largely coming from the fact that there will be a serious constraints on the vaccine throughput coming from the manufacturers. So provided, unless we have 4 or 5 manufacturers together taking the load of producing vaccine, I think the challenge remains still. But to answer your question, yes, there is infrastructure available. There will be some opportunity, incremental opportunity for the cold chain. But the question is, how much of that incremental? I think still a difficult question to answer at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. So, Mr. Nagendra Prasad, I would like to understand from you, considering the impact of COVID-19 as well as the different policy decisions taken in the recent past, is there a kind of shortage in the refrigerant supply? Or if it is, how you are dealing with that?
I think we don't have a challenge of refrigerant transition like the other markets are facing. For example, in Europe, and again, they are facing with lower global warming potential refrigerants being used. That means they are facing a situation of transition. Apart from that, alike from that, in India, we don't have that situation, and we are working on primarily HFC or HCFC refrigerants like R22, R134A, R404A, as well as the natural refrigerants for large systems as ammonia. These refrigerants are abundantly available at this point of time. And to mind you, when you require refrigerant is at 2 stages: when you are installing a new refrigeration system or servicing a leak. So given the situation, we see that the leak rates are very low. And given the situation of this situation, the refrigerants are abundantly available for India market. There is no issue on that.
So where do you see the year 2021 for cold chain industry in India, to start with Mr. Reddy, then Mr. Ahuja, and then Mr. Prasad?
Yeah, so 2021 year is certainly not a normal year. I think we'll have to understand that for sure. But in terms of the COVID, in terms of the vaccination programs, in terms of the cold chain requirements, I think it is going to be a not a bad year for generally the cold chain industry to say to. I think one sector which yet to see a revival is hospitality, which will have some negative impact. But I think that negative impact will be offset by the incremental opportunity available out of vaccine programs. That is my observation or my assessment of the cold chain market going to be. Second is, I think there is also a conscious, I would say many of the people are conscious now, in terms of beefing their own storage requirements. I mean, I'll tell you, this is an insight which is coming from our own surveys and market research, etc. People are cautious of, cautious and want to stock more food at home. And this is also one, thing that is slowly picking up, because what happened in Europe currently, suddenly there's a lockdown now. Okay, when a lockdown happens, obviously there's going to be a disturbance to the food supply chain. So hence the need for stocking more food. So hence people consciously, especially metros, have started, enhancing their own storage capacity. So somebody has a 165 liters refrigerator, people are buying, say, 300 liter refrigerator. Somebody wants more, that kind of things. Also, we are seeing that. So it is going to be positive, number one. And but though it may not be to a pre-COVID levels, but certainly, definitely there's going to be a good revival for a cold chain industry. But certainly that one sector which has taken a big beating is the hospitality industry. So that I think we'll see some time before it revives.
What I foresee is 2021, as Mr. Reddy rightly pointed out, that work from home culture is definitely here to stay. And that is going to be changing our food habits and the way we eat. Storage capacities at home are under pressure, and they are demanding more space nowadays. What I would like to see for 2021 is a little bit of overhaul of the policies of National Horticultural Board. And secondly, I would like to see more of food processors coming into the field and playing a pivotal role into this change of our lifestyles, that is work from home. Once the number of food processors goes up tremendously, demand for your cold storage services will definitely go up, and God willing, the loss of foods in production stage or post-harvest stage should definitely be our cause of concern, which we can monitor and control through newer policies of the government. Ecosystem has been given to the farmers now. The whole world you can deal anywhere from, and you have to come up with some innovative ideas about how a marginal farmer would be able to save his produce from the vagaries of the temperature while playing up the market price.
Yeah, definitely the COVID-19 pandemic on the manufacturing sector, there was key challenges in 2020 is the supply chain. You have different components to get manufacture a product. And when we hope that in 2021 it's going to revive, the supply chains should withstand with the demand. And the second one I would like to see in 2021 is some incentives to employ at the last mile delivery solutions or smaller cold storages. Like today we have credits that are being given at residential area to produce solar energy, and you can take a credit back in the electric consumption. Like that, if you can give an incentives at smaller cold storage or smaller players, that will definitely add on to the effective usage of cold chains at the last mile delivery situations.
Thank you so much, panelists, for sharing your viewpoints and exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic, hot opportunities in cold chain, and further discussing that COVID-19 impact on cold chain industry and what lies ahead for cold chain market in 2021. Thank you so much. And before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Gopal Ahujaji, Mr. Srinivas Reddy, and Mr. Hari Nagendra Prasad. I would also like to thank my editor, Mr. Prasad Nayar, for taking this initiative. So thanks to all the delegates and viewers. So with this, we would like to announce closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.